بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وأفضل الصلاة وأتم التسليم على سيدنا المبعوث رحمة للعالمين محمد بن عبد الله وعلى آله وأصحابه وسلم تسليما كثيرا إلى يوم الدين. Today, inshallah, we are continuing with Ahkam of Sujood al-Sahw. So, there's no point in giving a reminder of what we went over last class due to how much it was. So we're going to get straight into uh, the continuation of Ahkam. So last time we stopped at whoever leads uh, al-jahr or sir, whoever leads leading loudly or reading silently. And we're continuing here. قال المصنف رحمه الله ومن ضحك في الصلاة بطلت سواء كان ساهيا أو عامدا. Whoever laughs in the prayer, it is invalidated regardless of whether it is on purpose or out of forgetfulness. This is as opposed to talking. Last time we went over talking, we said that talking only invalidates the prayer if it's done on purpose, but if it's done out of forgetfulness, then it does not invalidate the prayer. So laughing would invalidate regardless of what the reason was. And here he includes a bit about khushu'. He says, وَلَا يَضْحَكُ فِي صَلَاتِهِ إِلَّا غَافِلٌ مُتَلَاعِبٌ وَالْمُؤْمِنُ إِذَا قام للصلاة أعرض بقلبه عن كل ما سوى الله سبحانه وترك الدنيا وما فيها حتى يحضر بقلبه جلال الله سبحانه وعظمته ويرتعد قلبه وترهب نفسه من هيبة الله جل جلاله. So he says, to begin with, nobody should be laughing in salah. And the only person who laughs in salah is someone who is playing around and he's not taking the salah seriously. And the mu'min, the believer, should every time he goes to the prayer, he should completely empty his heart of anything other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and everything in the dunya and what it contains until his heart can comprehend the majesty and the glory of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and his heart should tremble in fear uh, from the self of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. فهذه صلاة المتقين. So this is the prayer of the muttaqin, the people who have taqwa. This is how their prayer should be. ولا شيء عليه في التبسم. However, there is nothing upon him from tabassum, from smiling. So someone who is containing his laughter and he smiles but no sound comes out, then his prayer is not invalidated. The prayer is invalidated when the sound of laughter comes out, regardless of what it sounds like. There's different ways people laugh. Does laughing in salah also invalidate wudu like in the Hanafi school? No, it does not. طيب. وبكاء الخاشع في الصلاة مغتفر. So the crying of someone who is in khushu', some people cry when they read the Quran, and sound comes out with crying. This sound does not invalidate the prayer as the sound of laughing or the sound of talking would do. ومن أنصت لمتحدث قليلا فلا شيء عليه. So whoever listens to someone talking, he's praying and the TV is on, or there's a kid playing around beside him, and if he listens to it for a few moments, then there's nothing wrong with that. It does not invalidate the prayer, and it does not require sujood as-sahw. ومن قام من ركعتين قبل الجلوس فإن تذكر قبل أن يفارق الأرض بيديه وركبتيه رجع إلى الجلوس ولا سجود عليه وإن فارقها تمادى ولم يرجع وسجد قبل السلام. So in these salawat, other than salat al-subh, you have two tashahhuds. In the second rak'ah, you have the first tashahhud. Right? In all the salawat, except for subh and dhuhr and asr and the maghrib and the isha, you have two tashahhuds. The first one being at the second rak'ah. What if you get up from the sujood, and you forget that you have a tashahhud to do? You go to standing. If you remember, while you are still getting up, meaning some part of your body is still on the floor, meaning your knees, even one knee is on the floor, one hand is still on the floor. Then you go back into the sitting position and you do the tashahhud. However, someone who's already gotten up, who's already standing and he started reading a Fatiha, then he does not go back to tashahhud, because tashahhud is a sunnah, not a fard. And so someone who would do this, he only remembers after he gets up. He does not go into tashahhud, and he performs a sujood ba'di. Sorry, a sujood qabli, because he missed an action of the prayer. As for the person who remembers while he's still, one of his body parts is still on the floor, and he goes back into tashahhud. So we said that someone who still has a hand or two hands or one knee or two knees still in sujood, still on the floor, he hasn't completely gotten up, then he goes back into tashahhud. This person does not have to do any sujood because he has not missed the sunnah. طيب. وإن رجع بعد المفارقة وبعد القيام ساهيا أو عامدا صحت صلاته. So as we just said, someone who remembers only after he has stood up, then he does not go back. However, if he out of forgetfulness, out of ignorance, or even on purpose, goes back into tashahhud position, even though he's gotten up, then his salah is not invalidated. However, he does sujood after the salam, because he has added an action which is standing between the sujood and between the tashahhud. And this would require a sujood ba'di. Now, the salah would be invalidated if he goes back after completing al-Fatiha completely, because that is changing the order of the obligatory actions, and that invalidates the prayer. So, to review, if I remember while I'm still getting up, I go into tashahhud, and I do not perform any sujood. If I remember after I have stood up, then I continue and don't go back into tashahhud, and I perform a sujood qabli. I perform sujood before the salam. And if I go back, even after I have stood up, then my prayer is not invalidated. However, I perform a sujood after the salam. And if I go back after completing al-Fatiha, then my prayer is invalidated. طيب. ومن نفخ في صلاته ساهيا سجد بعد السلام وإن كان عاملا بطلت صلاته. Whoever is blowing, sighing or making these, even though he's not talking, whoever's blowing, it's as if he is talking. So if similar to talking, if he does it on purpose, his salah is invalidated, and if he does it out of forgetfulness, then he does a sujood after the salam. ومن عطس في صلاته فلا يشتغل بالحمد. Whoever sneezes in the salah does not say alhamdulillah. ولا يرد على شمته ولا يشمت عاطسا فإن حمد الله فلا شيء عليه. So if he does say alhamdulillah, he does not have to perform anything. ومن تثاءب في الصلاة. Whoever is yawning in prayer, سد فاه. He covers his mouth. ولا ينفث إلا في ثوبه من غير إخراج حروف. So someone who is sighing, sorry, not sighing, yawning. A lot of yawning in general is involuntary. However, the method in which it leaves the mouth can be altered. Some people add letters. Some people, they start yawning in a specific way just because they're used to it outside of the salah. They extend the yawn. They might add, the Arabs might add the letter kha in there. Some Westerners might add the letter B in it. Whoever is adding letters, whoever is talking or changing the sound of the yawn on purpose, then he is talking. However, the yawn in its original ruling is involuntary and therefore does not invalidate the salah. So as he says, من غير إخراج حروف, uh, without letters exiting, meaning exiting his mouth. ومن شك في حدث أو نجاسة فتفكر في صلاته قليلا ثم تيقن الطهارة فلا شيء عليه. Uh, whoever doubts whether he has performed a hadath, meaning whoever doubts if he's invalidated his prayer with a nullifier of wudu. Now, as we said, back in the first chapters, whoever doubts a nullifier of wudu, then that itself is a nullifier of wudu. However, if he's just thinking about it for a second or two, and then after that second or two, he remembers that he does have wudu and that his wudu is not nullified, then that's okay. Now, what he's saying here is that this amount of time, 2 seconds, 10 seconds, whatever it may be, this amount of time in which he is thinking about wudu, he's trying to remember if he has wudu or not. Obviously, in this moment of time, he does not have khushu'. So he's saying, if he does this, then there's nothing wrong. فلا شيء عليه. ومن التفت في الصلاة ساهيا فلا شيء عليه. Whoever's turning around in salah out of forgetfulness, there's nothing upon him. وإن تعمد فهو مكروه. If he's purposely doing it, it is makruh. However, there is a specific limit in which so your body is facing the qibla, right? There is a specific limit a specific angle after which the salah is invalidated. And this is وَإِنِ اسْتَدْبَرَ الْقِبْلَةِ. Whoever moves so much that the qibla is to his back. If I hear a sound and I look to my right, I heard something fall down, or I heard a baby scream, or whatever, I can look to my right, I can look to my left. If it's on purpose, it's makruh. It doesn't invalidate the prayer. However, if I'm turning around, then that is completely altering how the prayer is performed, and that nullifies the prayer and has to be redone. Now, whether or not this is sinful, it depends, and we're going to get into this in later not in this text, but later chapters in other texts, in which there are specific excuses which would allow you to end the prayer, such as a fear of, something very bad happening, such as someone dying. You're alone in the house with your elderly grandfather and you hear him falling on the stairs. He probably hit his head or something. In that case, then you can end the prayer because there is a fear for life. So again, just because he says here that the prayer is invalidated, we should not automatically assume that it is sinful. And that's something that there's a lot of nuance and it has to be spoken about in depth throughout many texts and throughout many contexts. So it cannot be covered in a short amount of time. However, as we said, when istadbar al-qibla, if his back is faced to the qibla, then his prayer is invalidated. He has to end it and redo it. ومن صلى بحرير أو ذهب أو سرق في الصلاة أو نظر محرما فهو عاص وصلاته صحيحة. Whoever is praying with silk or gold, or he's doing something haram in the salah, such as he's stealing in the salah, or he's looking at something haram in the salah, he's sinful. However, his salah is correct. Now, there is a debate amongst the fuqaha regarding a specific rule. And I mentioned this before in one of the classes quite a while ago, that there is a legal maxim, a qa'ida fiqhiyya, al-ma'doom shar'an kal-ma'doom hissan. Something which is absent in a shar'i perspective, it is as if it is absent altogether. Meaning, some fuqaha will argue that because a man cannot wear silk, then from a shar'i perspective, it is as if he is not wearing anything. So someone who prays in silk or prays in a stolen a stolen piece of clothing, then his salah is invalid because he has to cover his awrah with something that is legally um, it's legally not legally from a Shari perspective, not a state perspective, but it's Shari, it's considered from the Sharia. You know, the Sharia considers this as clothing for this person. If it's not, if it's stolen, then it's not really clothing for this person, and therefore he is not covering his awrah. This is one view amongst the fuqaha. The other view, which as we just said, is that he is sinful, however, his prayer is correct. And this is something when inshallah we're going to get into legal maxims. We're going to learn that legal maxims are not evidences in themselves. They do not, usul al-fiqh, they're evidences in themselves. Usul al-fiqh apply to all of the sharia. Any evidence, when applied to usul al-fiqh, it gives you a ruling. However, a qa'ida fiqhiyya, it does not apply to all of sharia. A qa'ida fiqhiyya, as we say, is a qa'ida aghlabiyya. It's a rule that applies to most of the rulings. There's exceptions for when legal maxims apply and when they don't. Just to give you another example, one of the legal maxims is al-darar yuzal, harm must be removed. Now, obviously, this is not this does not apply to all of the Sharia. Otherwise, jihad would not have been legislated. And jihad is, it obviously puts some of the Muslims in harm's way. Now, it's for a good cause, obviously. That's besides the point. The point is that legal maxims are not evidences in themselves. And nowadays, there's a movement, it's not very big, but regardless, in which people try to derive ahkam, derive rulings from the maqasid. The maqasid of the Sharia, which you guys may have heard of, are the goals of the Sharia. And this is similar to building ahkam based on rulings. Sorry, building ahkam based on legal maxims. Legal maxims and maqasid al-Sharia, they're not evidences in themselves. Rather, they're general rules that apply to a large number of rulings, which we gain through ijtihad and through looking at all of the ahkam. So someone looks at all of the Sharia and he says, you know, there's a specific rule which seems to be, it keeps repeating. I look at multiple chapters and this specific rule seems to be there in a lot of the chapters. And that's how we derive something called a legal maxim, a legal rule, a qa'ida fiqhiyya. It's not an evidence in itself. Rather, it's something which we have gained through looking at evidences. And this is why, even though we as the Maliki agree that this rule is true, al-ma'dum shar'an, al-ma'dum hassan, something which is absent from a Shari'i perspective is absent altogether. We agree that this is a rule. However, the fuqaha are going to argue between themselves, when does this legal maxim apply and when does it not? Because there are majority rules, not complete rules. They're not absolute rules. Do the maqasid relate to the kulliyat al-khamsa? They relate. They're not exactly the same, but they are, yes, they're generally the same concept. Almost. طيب. ومن غلط في القراءة. Whoever makes a mistake in qira'ah, his prayer is valid as long as the word itself is in the Quran. So, someone who's reading an ayah that ends in وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْعَلِيمُ, but he accidentally, he makes a mistake and he says وَهُوَ السَّمِيعُ الْبَصِيرُ. It's a common, both of them are common words in the Quran. Sometimes that mistake can be made. That does not invalidate the prayer. However, someone who's bringing words from outside the Quran, you know, he's completely messing it up. Sajada ba'da salam. He prays after the, not praise, sorry, he does sujood after the salam because he's added something to the salah. وإن كانت من القرآن فلا سجود عليه. So if it's from the Quran, then there is nothing upon him. إلا أن يتغير اللفظ أو يفسد المعنى فيسجد بعد السلام. So except that the meaning is changed. If he's changing the meaning of the verse completely, this is talking about the person who's bringing words from the Quran. So even if he brings words from the Quran, if he's completely changing the meaning or changing the structure of the verse, then he also would do sujood after the salam. ومن نعس في الصلاة فلا سجود عليه وإن ثقل نومه أعاد الصلاة. Whoever is uh, getting sleepy, he's almost asleep in the salah, he doesn't have to do sujood. However, if his sleep is heavy, and some people can fall asleep while they are standing, while they are sitting, sometimes in the ruku' or sometimes in sujood, regardless. If his sleep is heavy, then he has to repeat the prayer. Because it's a nullifier of wudu. And a nullifier of wudu is by necessity a nullifier of the prayer. Now we defined in the chapter of nullifiers of prayer that the heavy sleep is defined as a sleep by which if a loud sound were to happen behind him, then he would not wake up from it. طيب. وأنين المريض مغتفر والتن والتنحف والتنحنح للضرورة مغتفر وللإفهام منكر ولا تبطل الصلاة به. So if an imam makes a mistake in the salah, it's supposed to be corrected by dhikr or something like that. If the imam is making a mistake in the qira'ah, or he goes into sujood before going to ruku' or something along those lines, I say subhanallah or something like that. If I were to cough or to clear my throat with the purpose of um, with the purpose of correcting the prayer, of alerting someone, then it will be forbidden. However, it does not invalidate the prayer. And this can happen for situations even not including the imam. For example, I'm praying alone in my house, and I have a 10-year-old kid, for example, and he's playing in my backpack when he shouldn't be. There's stuff for work. I need him to leave the backpack alone. I should not do this by clearing my throat or by coughing or by something like this. It will be forbidden. However, it would not invalidate the prayer. Um, However, the person who is doing it because he is sick, then there's nothing wrong with it. Someone has a lot of phlegm in his throat. He needs to clear his throat, otherwise he's going to lose his khushu'. He can barely breathe, then there's nothing wrong with that. ومن ناداه أحد فقال له سبحان الله كره وصحت صلاته. If someone is calling you in the prayer, meaning someone who's not praying, I'm praying and someone's calling me. He's telling me, Amin, are you here? Something like that. If I say subhanallah, then it is makruh, but my prayer is valid. We said that the word subhanallah or any other dhikr is only for correcting the prayer, correcting the imam. ومن وقف في القراءة ولم يفتح عليه أحد ترك تلك الآية وقرأ ما بعدها فإن تعذرت عليه ركع. Whoever is in an ayah, he's reading in the surah and he's confused about the ayah. He just can't remember what the word is he's looking for. First of all, it should be upon the ma'mum, the person behind him, to correct him. However, if he doesn't, it says لم يفتح عليه أحد. Nobody is telling him what to say. He leaves that ayah and he goes to the ayah after it. So I'm on ayah 7. I read ayah 7. And I'm in the middle of ayah 8, but I just can't remember what it is. I leave it and I go to ayah 9. فإن تعذرت عليه ركع. If I can't remember what ayah 9 is, so I can't remember ayah 8, and I also can't remember ayah 9, then I go into ruku'. ولا ينظر مصحفا بين يديه إلا يكون في الفاتحة فلا بد من كمالها بمصحف أو غيره إن ترك منها آية سجد قبل السلام. So if he makes a mistake in the surah, then he does not look at the mushaf. However, he does look at the mushaf for al-Fatiha. And this is talking about the person who does not know al-Fatiha, someone who recently converted or who just has a very bad memory. He can't remember al-Fatiha. He's allowed to look at a mushaf because the completeness of al-Fatiha is from the completeness of the prayer. إن ترك منها آية سجد قبل السلام. If he misses one ayah of al-Fatiha, then he does sujood before the salam. If he misses more than one ayah, then the salah is invalid. فإن ترك منها آية سجد قبل السلام وإن كان أكثر بطلت صلاته ومن فتح عليه غير إمامه بطلت صلاته. I've pointed toward this a few sections ago, that when you're correcting the imam, it has to be your imam. If there is, for whatever reason, a different congregation also praying beside you, if you correct the imam of the other congregation, your salah is invalidated. You can only correct your imam. طيب. Inshallah, we will stop here for today. As you guys know, there's no class tomorrow. And if we go really fast, we might finish Friday, but I see it finishing on, I see us finishing the text on Saturday, inshallah. طيب.